Hello, I'm Noga Halman, creator of UpsideDown Parenting, and I'm sitting here today with my lovely friend, Dalit Rosen, who is the founder of the very popular Facebook page, Brand New Mamas. And we're going to talk about really what interests us these years more than anything, which is parenting and growing through mothering, and how to figure out who we are and what we need, what's good for us as mothers, so we can also be good to our children and keep burnout at bay. And we're going to talk about some questions that you guys submitted through the page. You submitted them on Brand New Mamas, and we put them together, and we're going to answer them one by one, basically. It's actually our favorite topic for both of us in the last few years. Mothering, parenthood, understanding who we are and what we need in order to be content, because we understand that being a good mother begins by being good to yourself. And this is the message that we want to convey today through answering your questions. So let's start. Dalit, what are you up to these days?
First of all, this is my third baby, Nava, E.v.e.r.y.D.a.y. I'm busy with her at home. She's 4 months. I'm also busy managing the Facebook group. All sorts of issues appear. Certain things that the admin's required to do, such as deleting inappropriate posts, keeping things on topic, and just trying to be supportive and helpful for the mamas, which is something I'm passionate about. Also, I have a business that I help to home organize in decluttering and reorganizing people's spaces that work for them, because also certainly as a mother I've realized that for me at least, if my space is clear, then my mind is clear, and that's something that helps me to be a better mother. So I use my tools to help other people to work out how to organize their spaces so they have a sense of calm. Mm-hmm. So Noga, what are you up to these days with your UpsideDown parenting website?
So I'm still celebrating the fact that I have this website, because 2 years ago when my husband suggested that I take on parenting as a profession, I thought, I have all these skills of facilitating people through their problems in life and through thoughts that bother them, and my clientele was mostly mothers, but I didn't think I would be in parenting. And then I discovered that all this information and skills that I have accumulated over the years, when I talk with mothers, it really clicks, because we have such common problems. You can be a mother in Australia, in Israel, you can be Jewish or Christian, and what we have in common is motherhood. You can be a brand new mama or a veteran mama, and we really face the same struggles. And I'm sure we're talking here to mindful mothers, conscious mothers, and conscious mothers have an additional struggle that other parents perhaps don't face, which is not only my child is hitting his brother, what do I do? But also, how do I manage myself in this situation? If I shout, how do I correct what I did? It's not always how to fix the situation. It's really, who am I in this situation? What do I need to learn in this situation? What do I need to redirect inside of me in this situation? And that's something very unique to mindful mothers. And that's where I understood that it's not going to be what we usually see in parenting contexts, which is how to fix the children. It's going to be a lot more about looking at the big picture of parenting. Yeah. Who am I in this situation, and what are my takeaways for life from being a mother? So some of you know I put up videos in UpsideDownParenting.com where we talk exactly about this meeting point of me as a person and me as a parent. And now I'm working on new products and new valuable information that everyone can enjoy and use. So Dalit, what question do you want to start with?
Okay, I want to start with a question from Chava. She writes 2 things. Firstly, my children ages 9, 7 and 3 tend to ignore me when I ask them to get ready to leave the house. Every day. I've tried everything and the only thing to get them going is yelling. I hate yelling. Any suggestions? Second question, she writes, I find it very difficult to take care of myself on a regular basis. I tend to forget about me until I'm beyond running on fumes. The problem is I've lost my willpower to go out and do things just for myself.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so these are questions that I think a lot of us face this, that we have to nag the kids in the morning to do what seemingly should have been already almost a ritual for them.
Right.
Something they're used to doing, something they have the practice of doing, and you're not the only one. We have it in the morning, we have it in bedtime.
Yes.
No, I have it in my home. Theme of why doesn't this just work out at the same time in the same way every day? Why does it feel every day like I have to, get this truck moving with yelling and getting upset? So I would like to give an answer that's on 2 levels. One level is some advice and suggestions of what you can actually do to make it better, and the other level, which I think is in the long run more important, is a principle. How to deal with this situation. Even when it changes, when your kids are older, when the situation is slightly different, when you don't have a kid in kindergarten anymore or in preschool, when all the kids are in school, when they're all teenagers, when you know the principle, you can apply it in any situation, even when your kids grow up. And in that sense, asking questions when your kids are younger really prepares you for the teenage years, because if you get the principle, you just run with it. Throughout the whole years of all the years of raising kids. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is to put this in context, because many times we ask a question and it seems like the question is very technical. My kids don't want to leave the house or don't want to get ready by themselves, and I have to remind them again and again. But then when you say in the end that you have to yell at them and that you hate yelling, it seems to me like that is sometimes even more of an issue than the actual issue. It causes us more pain than the actual pain of maybe having a kid go late to kindergarten or miss the school bus every once in a while. Facing myself as, this monster coming out of me and starting to yell, or a tyrant, or having to order my kids around with this unpleasant voice first thing in the morning, can make me feel much worse than all the other implications of having kids leave home not on time. So we're mothers, so we wake up in the morning and the kids don't listen and we shout. That's our reality. Now let's look at someone else's reality, someone who we can look at objectively. Let's think about a truck driver. So we have a cross-country truck driver. And he's driving his truck already for 6 hours, and he has this big load in the back, and he reaches the faraway village that he has on his schedule, and discovers that what he's schlepping in his truck is not what the villagers ordered. So he starts swearing like truck drivers know, and he gets really upset. Why did my manager not give me the exact address? Why did they load the wrong thing? How stupid could I be not checking, not double checking? So we're looking at him and saying, hey man, you're a truck driver. This is the kind of problems that truck drivers face. This is so typical for a truck driver to discover that he took the wrong thing or drove in vain. Now you just go back and you wasted a day. It's okay. It's a truck driver's life. Maybe if he looks at us objectively and he says, okay, mama, so you shouted. That's the life of a mother. Mothers shout. You didn't notice? So we all shout, most of us, 99% of us, let's even be generous, 95% of us, we shout, and sometimes it's unexpected. I thought I would be nice now, and all of a sudden this monster comes out of me and I shout. I have this idea that the morning should be a calm and wonderful time where we all kiss and hug on the way out of the house, and instead we're shouting and kicking our kids out of the house. So what do you do with that? So you remember the context. Just like the truck driver, he can curse as much as he wants, but it'll happen again. We can get upset at ourselves and feel bad and feel guilty, but look, it's going to happen again. We're going to shout. So really what we need to learn is exactly what the truck driver does. He goes to the back, he's done with the cursing, goes to the back, takes out the toolbox, and tries to fix his own truck. Now, sometimes he'll succeed and he'll get back on the road. Sometimes he'll need help. He'll call the towing company. So he'll get outside help. Same thing with a mother. Sometimes you get back to my senses on my own. And sometimes I feel like I'm just losing balance altogether in my life. And then I'll go to a professional. But what we need to learn is to live with that yelling. To understand that this is part of our life and to learn how to bounce back from it as quickly as we can. So now let's go back to the specifics of your situation and see what to do so that it'll be calmer, so that there will be less yelling, and perhaps you won't need to nudge your kids so much, and they'll do things more independently without your yelling in the morning. So you have a kid who goes to preschool, and then 2 kids who apparently go to school already.
Yeah.
So these are kids who can be independent, and you can expect them to get dressed on their own and to watch the clock. So maybe what you can do is, starting from tomorrow, say, hey kids, in 10 minutes you need to be ready for the school bus, or in 10 minutes you need to be out of the door. You have 10 minutes. Now just watch from the side.
Or even like step before that, like sometimes I try with my 5-year-old the night before when we're in bed, I try, if I'm conscious, to say, tomorrow morning I need ABC, so I'm telling you now so that you get yourself ready. Emma's telling you in advance, like if we are able to be good planners.
Yeah. Or that reminds me, my kids, I discovered, I didn't know it at the beginning of the year, but I discovered that 3 days a week they have an extracurricular activity in preschool. So I started telling them, I'm not that planned that I can do it in the evening, but in the morning I tell them, it's getting late and we don't want to miss the activity. And all of a sudden they start helping one another put on the coat. So I say it with an excited voice, but I usually don't need to shout. From that point on, when I remind them that there's an activity, they're fully active in getting us out of the house. Now, if there's no activity to bribe them with, then I, to the 3-year-old, I come and I do things. I put the shirt on him. I put him on me so that he would get dressed. You know, if I call him 5 times and he keeps running away, I just come and scoop him up and I do what I need to do. Sometimes it goes with a little bit shouting on his side, but I like that better than the shouting on my side. It's okay if he shouts a little or screams a little as I get him dressed, but I stay calm because I know that we're heading there. We're getting ready to go out. With older kids, which also I deal with in the morning, they have to get on a school bus. They've missed the school bus in the past, and they will miss it again in the future. But
how do they get to school?
They go on the public buses if there's no school bus, and they don't like it. I don't like it either. They don't like it. It's a punishment. I don't allow them to stay home if they miss the school bus, and I found that it's very effective to say, look at the time. It's 7:10. Now I can do it with a shout, and I can do it quietly.
Yeah.
And if I'm enough aware that I calm myself down, then I'll say it quietly and I'll get the same effect. So try to play with this, but the most important thing is, remember, you will shout again. You might shout 5 times in that situation, but every time jump back and say to yourself, okay, how can I say this thing, with the same thing without the shouting? And allow yourself to bounce back. I don't know, Dalit, if you feel this, but I noticed that when I shout, we have this idea that we should be like all loving, right? When we love, we should go till the end. The problem with that philosophy is that when we hate, we feel like we should go all the way till the end. So if I start shouting, I feel like, I should just let the day roll in this direction. You know, I can't pull back. I feel like I'm almost a hypocrite if I shout 1 second and then the second later I'm loving again. It's like I'm going to confuse my kids. If I keep being nasty, they won't be confused. They'll say, okay, I have a nasty Ima today. I have a nasty mother today. My own way of thinking anymore. Like I used to think it's better not to confuse them. No. Confuse them. If you shout and then you say, oh, wait a second, I can do something different now, just put on a smile on your face and smile. Now, and maybe the next minute they'll upset you again. You'll shout. Put a smile on your face again.
I think a lot of parents have said, and certainly I say the same sentiment, that we often apologize to our children. Like the morning will be hectic and it'll be rushed, and then we'll shout at them, and then they'll leave the door, and we'll say, okay, come give me a kiss, because you don't want it to be bittersweet kind of thing. So you do it for yourself more than for them. The kiss is for that you need.
Right.
Then once the time you've called off and you've had the day to yourselves, you see them again in the afternoon when you pick them up from from school, whatever it is, or that they walk in the door themselves, depending on the situation, and you're very happy to see them again. And then until they drive you nuts for the next thing. But at that moment that you say to them, Ima's sorry about shouting this morning, and it could be that you're saying the same thing over and over again, or you try to say sometimes, I've heard mothers like, I apologize to my kids all the time. They feel like it's in vain because they think the kid doesn't really like accept the apology because it keeps happening over and over again. But they're this is a good question because they're at a loss. Like, kids are people as well, and they're sensitive and they pick up on things, and a real apology is a real apology. And also with the intent to change is also something that's not to be taken for granted, even if it's not going to be an overnight process. But the idea that the awareness is there that you hate yelling and that you want to try to have a more calm morning, it's the first step. And if the kids see that, then you have what to work with to make yourself feel like you're not a terrible person.
Yeah. Maybe when we feel like we want to apologize to the kids, instead we should keep ourselves busy forgiving ourselves. If I forgive myself about the shouting that happened a minute ago, it'll be much easier for me to look ahead, put on a smile, and go back to my nice self. Knowing that I also have a little monster within. Yes,
right.
The monster will come out again, but I'll be able to go back to my nice self. So to be busy forgiving myself, and I think the kids will get that.
Yeah.
That I'm working on myself, and it's not so much their fault or their story. It's my own thing with myself. Okay, so let's move on to Chava's second question, which was, I find it very difficult to take care of myself on a regular basis. So you say that you would like to do, if you could, you would like to do some yoga, which you used to do in the past, or to go out with friends, to socialize, to go on a date night with your husband, stuff like that. And you're saying that you lost your willpower to go out and do things. So I would add to that, when I lost my willpower, I also lost my physical energy, and I lost even my capability to leave the house. I didn't want to leave loose ends, like loose kids who are not in bed yet, and I just lost all of my capabilities altogether, not just my willpower. And I found that the best thing is to schedule something in advance. So that would look like this: buying a card for yoga lessons. So you spend the money, you're going to make it there. Telling your husband, make sure to be home on Tuesday by this and this hour, and then calling the restaurant and actually making the reservation. Then you won't need to look for willpower or to hope that you have it. You'll just have a boss. Your schedule will be your boss, and your schedule will say, you paid for this, you have to go. You reserved a seat, you have to be there. You told your husband, so you have to get up and get dressed and put on some makeup and leave the house. So I found that deadlines that I really dreaded in the past, because I felt like as a stay-at-home mom, how can I even meet a deadline? My life revolves around the children and whatever they come up with, and it comes up surprisingly and unexpectedly, how can I even plan anything? But then I saw that when I have something planned and when I have a commitment made, and especially when money is involved, that's the biggest tip. Make sure to pay also for the yoga. Pay for it in advance. Commit to 3 months of yoga. You'll just have to do it, and these deadlines will turn into lifelines. They'll turn into something that helps you get out of your chair and look nice for going out. They'll help you get excited for the social event that you're going to, whether it's a party with friends or just to meet up with an old friend. It'll give you strength, the deadlines. So that's my biggest tip for that, to just commit yourself to something, write it in, have the other party know that you're coming so that you're really committed, and if possible, pay. Do you have any tips?
It's really hard if you're not an organized person to try and be organized. It's like going against the grain of who you are. I'm naturally like organized, but that also makes me kind of highly strung at the same time, because if things don't go according to the order, someone who's very organized, it causes chaos. So there's also pluses and minuses to both. Finding time to take care of yourself. Maybe just choose one thing that you want to do and try and schedule it, like if you know that you have a break, or if you don't know that you have a break in a certain day, then drop one thing that you do in order to allow time for this. So even if you like, it sounds so simple, but even if you like to wash your face with a special cleansing wash at night time, and that will make you feel like you're looking after yourself. But if you are like me and you just crash out at night and don't do that kind of thing, but if it is important to you, then just leave the laundry that needs folding at that moment, for example, if you are not bothered by it, and use the energy to do something that you want to do. And there will always be laundry, there will always be that kind of thing. So if you're okay with having your routine and dropping something, maybe not as big as laundry, but do you understand what I'm trying to say? Like dropping something in order to like fit in the time for your one specific task.
Yeah.
Or leaving it like if you forget about it, leave it like really, really by the sink, like by your toothbrush, so that it's in front, staring you in the face, that you don't have to think about having to do something. But if that's what makes you feel good, then have it like in front of you so that it's within easy access.
Mm-hmm. And I would add that together with dropping things from your list, also to drop the idea that we have to do it all the time.
Exactly.
I started thinking about. I read a lot of stuff on the internet, and the word that comes up so much in the context of mothering and having it all is balance. Okay, so I gave up on having it all. I don't think any person in the world really has it all. Maybe
I have my own philosophy. I do believe that you can have it all, but you can't have it all at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to be a stay-at-home mum and baking cookies and keeping your house perfect looking, and that's what you dedicate your time to, then you can't have it all that you can then go out and have meeting after meeting and be a career mother. You can try and balance it, but there will always be something that has to give, be it your relationship with yourself, with your spouse, with your kids, or with your community. Maybe you won't be able to make that meal that you like to do for a new mother, or go to visit somebody that needs care. You'll have to drop certain things in order to have it all.
Right. Or if you're a career woman, maybe you have to accept that you'll buy the best cookies from the store, but you won't bake the best cookies. And it's okay. That's the thing, that it's okay. So if you look at the word balance, we will forever feel guilty because we will not find balance. At least when the kids are young, there will be no balance, because you're planning a balanced day, but then your kid comes home and demands your attention with a tantrum, let's say, for the next 2 hours. That's it. You lost your balance. Your plan is like completely off, and then you also feel guilty because the kid has a tantrum. It took so long, and I didn't do all the things on my list, so nothing is good about me. It happens to a lot of mothers. I don't know how to live. I don't know how to run my life. All kinds of horrible thoughts like that are not contributing to anything really. So I thought to myself, okay, so if it's not balanced, so what is it? How can we think about it in a way that's not, that doesn't take away from the opportunity to do many things and to feel like I'm achieving? And I came up with this concept of patchwork.
Okay.
So if I look at my life, I've been a parent for over 15 years, and I look at my life and I see that my life is balanced altogether. But it's balanced in a very patchy kind of way. There were some years where I was a wreck. There was no balance. But if I look at those years, along with the years that followed, then I see that it is balanced. I gave a lot to my home, and then I gave a lot to myself. I went to university. I studied all kinds of self-help techniques. I got certifications in all kinds of things. So yes, 5 years were like there was nothing of that. And 5 years were a little, maybe too little of paying attention to my kids. I would have liked to pay attention more. Put those 10 years together and you get a balanced woman and a balanced life. And I think our kids will also look back. They won't look at our calendar and say, this day wasn't balanced. Here you didn't give me enough attention. They'll say, overall, my mom, with all of her interests and other loves in life and other attempts to be social and to do things, along the way, she gave me so much attention, and I feel like I grew up in a balanced environment or in a balanced reality. So how did we get to that, Dalit? What took us there? Oh yeah, okay. So Chava, you want to do things, and so our tips were: 1, schedule them. 2, don't schedule too much. Pick the one thing that you want, and take into account that you might need to give up on other things that potentially can give you feelings of guilt. So tip number 3 is, don't look for the balance. Look for being good to yourself. After you haven't given yourself yoga for the last few months, now add yoga. So something else will maybe fall between the chairs. But you'll get your yoga and you'll look back at the end of the year and you'll see that you did all of it. You did the yoga and you did the loving care for your children. And at the end of the day, you did it all, and everyone got what they need, including yourself. So
Okay, the next question we have is from Tova. She asks, when your kids whine and attempt to get what they want, which method works better, redirection or ignoring?
What do you think, Dalit?
So with my own personal example, last night, I was getting my 3-year-old out of the bath. He started whining. So I said to him, talk, my sweetie, not whining. What do we say? If you want something, you have to say it. So he stopped for a second and he said, please, which is how he asks, please. He said, please. So he didn't necessarily even understand what he was saying, but he just knew at that moment that whining means that noise that Emma doesn't like. And that usually when he says please, it means that he wants something. So even though he didn't totally understand the concept, he knew that Emma was not ready to hear that voice. So in that case, it worked. But it doesn't mean that it always works.
No, I also use it sometimes. My kids don't get to the point where they add the please. But I say it a little differently. I say, now, please tell me the same thing without whining.
Yeah.
So they take a deep breath and they calm themselves down and they say the same thing exactly, just with a different voice. And then I say, oh, that's great. That's so easy for me to hear.
So is that an example of redirection? Like you're redirecting them how to speak? Is that what you're saying?
No, I think Tova meant with the question to redirect or ignore. I think we added a third option now, not to ignore, not to redirect, to address what your kid is asking you, but asking him to say it in a different way. So that would be one option that maybe you didn't think about.
But that's when you have the time to be faced in front of that child to give them that capability to answer for themselves. Let's say you are with your other kids doing homework or changing the baby or putting another child in the bath and the other one's whining or fighting. I think ignoring in that case sometimes is the only way, because if you know that you're going to start yelling and losing it at that moment, especially when you're yelling from a different room, or like either way, if you're yelling in front of them, then by ignoring them, it means that you're able to focus on what you need to focus in that moment, be it the baby that needs a diaper change or a feed, or the toddler that can't be by himself in the bath, or the big kid that like has waited for your attention for all day long. And by ignoring the cry, or let's say even the baby needs to sometimes get ignored so that the other kids get dealt with, then it works.
Yeah, I want to write on what you said now. First of all, ignoring now doesn't mean that I won't listen to him later. I might ignore it now, and then later I'll go to the kid who stopped whining and maybe even forgot what he wanted, and I'll say, I heard you wanted something before, now I can listen to what you want. What did you want? At this point, he probably will say it without the whining. Anyhow, but if he says it with the whining again, I can ask him to say it differently. And you said to focus on what's at hand right now, and here I want to give over a really powerful principle. I would say, if I got to give one tip in parenting of no matter what age, my tip would be to memorize the question, what is the most important thing right now? It saves you from losing it in so many situations. It saves you from doing silly things in so many situations where the kids are jumping on you and each one of them wants something different, and that pair of kids is fighting and you need to run out of the house. What's the most important thing right now? There's always one important thing right now, and then after that there's another most important thing right now. So if the most important thing right now is that I make it to work on time, for example, then naturally and instinctively on the spot I'll know what to weed out, who to ignore, who to redirect. It's like a on the spot kind of thing, and that's where our instincts work really, really well, when we have to give a response right now. Questions lead to responses. When I ask a question, there's a question mark at the end. The question mark is like a door through which an answer comes through. The answers sometimes come rushing through, sometimes they're quiet, and I need to train my inner ear to listen to them, to hear them. I need to train myself to weed out from all the intuition that comes in. But it's a great question that I want to offer to you to go with. In all these situations where you don't know, to ignore, to do this, there's so many options. Ask yourself, what is the most important thing right now? If the most important thing right now is to give that whining child attention, you might even skip the stage of asking him to rephrase. You might even just give him a hug and let him whine a little more. Maybe that's the most important thing right now. Maybe the most important thing right now is for me to get out of the house. And maybe the most important thing right now is to ignore, because my kids are giving me such a headache today, that the most important thing right now is to pretend that nobody's even asking me for anything.
Right.
So be very open to your own answers, and I've even put this question on your refrigerator. What is the most important thing right now? That's the principle behind the question. So we're moving on to the next question. Dalit, you want to read the question?
Yes. Esther asks, what to do about a kid who always wants attention and always wants someone to play with her and watch what she's doing. I try to give her lots of attention. I'm home in the afternoons with her, and I try to set aside time to play with her, but she always wants me to be with her, and it's hard. But it's also hard that I'm always saying no. I can't play with you right now. Now you have to be on your own. Thanks.
Yeah, and a few other mothers joined this thread of this particular question. Chaviva has a 3.5-year-old son, and baby number 2 is a 1-year-old, and their needs clash. She wants to read a book to the 3-year-old, to the 3.5-year-old, but the baby really needs her.
Right.
And then we have Carla's question. Carla has a 10-month-old. He was always intense since he was born. Maybe he's even high needs. And it's very challenging to parent a baby like this. We're giving you chizik from here. And you want some tips and understand the best way to responding to his whining and crying. Okay, baby Nava is back. And okay, so we're back with starting from Carly.
Yes.
Okay, so Carly has a 10-month-old We said that.
High needs.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to start with Carly, and then go back up and the thread to Esther. So Carly has a 10-month-old, and a 10-month-old who's whining and high needs and needs all this attention and probably a lot of holding and touch, doesn't understand, can't tell us what he needs. That's one problem, that one challenge that we have. And we want to respond to his whining and crying, but as opposed to those 3-year-olds that we were talking about, that we can ask them to speak differently or address their needs in different ways, here we have a baby, so we're kind of limited. So we have a few books here today, a few book recommendations. This is actually the least recommendation. How to Talk So Kids Will Listen, and Listen So Kids Will Talk. My personal all-time favorite. It's a book that doesn't leave my bookshelf, while other books I give away all the time. But this book is fabulous. I read it before I had children. I read it before I got married. I didn't read it as a preparation for children. I read it because I had the feeling when I saw the cover that it's going to tell me something about speaking in a way that will reach my own heart and my own emotions. And I didn't know when I started reading it that I would start talking like that to myself. But that's really, really what happened. This book served me as a teenager. And I can tell you, it doesn't matter how many kids you have and how many years you've been a parent. It takes a lot of training to talk in the way that the book recommends, because you have to be a little calm to speak with your children with empathy. You know, you have to be with it in order to speak like that. And I keep losing it all the time. But when I do come back to my senses and I do use what I learned and How to Talk So Kids Will Listen, the situation changes like magic. It's really magical. So because I knew the book so early on, when my first daughter was born, I simply spoke to her as the book recommends. You know, the book gives you formulas, so I didn't say exactly the same wording, but the idea and the spirit of the book. And it was very helpful. I don't know how helpful it was for her. So she was crying, and I would go to her and say, oh, you're crying, or something's hurting you. Let's see what's hurting you. Some of it, obviously, we do naturally, but you have a 10-year-old who's whining and wants something, and you don't know what it is. So tell him in words that you don't know what it is, and he'll understand from your intonation that there's someone caring and loving who's trying to figure out how to help him right now, even though he can't tell you exactly what he wants. And I actually did see a change in the baby. You know, I was talking like this, and she calmed down because the voice was soothing, and because I came with a certain intention. There's like very positive intentions behind all the things that you learn in this book, even for negative situation. Yeah. It always comes with some positivity and a will to come towards you and not to shout at you or to push you away. So I'm absolutely sure that babies get the intonation. So I would say, even to make yourself feel better, take a look at this book. We're also going to put links underneath. And start practicing on your 10 months old how to talk in a way that conveys that you care and that it's okay that you don't know exactly what they need. They might be 12 and they won't be able to tell you what they need. But you'll know how to talk in a way that they'll know, my mother is here for me. And when I do know how to express myself, she'll be here to listen and to empathize with me. Okay, so we're going back up on the thread. Chaviva.
Balance.
Chaviva has a baby and a toddler. And then we have Esther, who has a daughter who wants her to play just with her.
Yes.
Okay, so these are similar but different situations, but I'm going to start with one advice fits all, and then we'll see what we'll make of it. So my advice is, I call it one small thing. So the daughter who wants a lot, if you come with the one small thing principle, then you create a certain expectation in her You lower her expectation, basically, but you commit to one small thing. So what is one small thing? It can be the tiniest thing. I can decide that today I'm going to put a blank paper and crayons in front of my kids on the table. It's very small, right? It takes 2 seconds to take it down. Maybe it takes another 2 minutes to clear the table. And I commit to that one small thing. And if I do that today, I'm going to feel really, really good about myself. And I know that it's such a small commitment that most probably I will do it. I will achieve it. And every day, if I take upon myself this one small thing, sometimes it can be a little bigger. Maybe I'll give them Play-Doh and Play-Doh tools. Maybe I'll read a book with them, which sometimes really doesn't work out because the baby is very demanding. Maybe you can commit yourself to a very short book, a book of 4 pages or 6 pages. You know, Goodnight Moon, that's a book that you can even read it over a baby's crying, right? Good night, cow jumping over the moon. Just scream the words, but before you know it, you're done. and the pictures say it all. So commit yourself to this one small thing, whether your challenge is baby and toddler or your challenge is a girl who wants much more than you can or want to give right now. A side note about this girl, so you have a very special daughter. She wants to go big, and that's very nice. And I think it is valuable to tell her, look, right now mommy can't do this long project with you, but I love it that you want to do big projects, and God willing, one day you'll be able to do this by yourself, and you'll be able to do it with your siblings. You'll be able to do things with them that they can do only with their older sister. And this way you empower her, you make her request feel legitimate, and give her the one small thing that you plan to give her that day. Another thing you can do with her is to cut the project down. If she wants to bake cookies, then tell her, today we'll go to buy the ingredients. You have the ingredients.
That's excellent.
And then tomorrow, let's put all of the dry ingredients. Let's prepare all the dry ingredients. And don't create an expectation to finish baking the cookies that day, because you might not be able to. But then when you have the dry ingredients, you might discover that the baby is sleeping, and you can, finish up really, really quickly. And then the day after, you assemble everything. So she got what she wanted. She didn't get it all at once. She's going to be exploring our patchwork life as mothers as a child, She's going to make cookies over 3 days. But you'll be able to mark a V and say, I made the cookies that my daughter wanted to make with me. And I really want to add here that as the kids grow up and become more independent and light the fire and have control over the oven and can measure by themselves, I find that in my home wonderful things happen. One of the kids likes cooking, one of the kids likes making salads, and one of the kids like baking, and the other kids kind of team up with the older kids and bake with them. And for some reason, the kids, maybe because they don't have all the other demands, they have a lot of patience. And baking with my daughter is a more pleasant experience than baking with me. So just look also towards the future, and reality will surprise you in many very nice ways. B'ezrat Hashem. Did we answer Chaviva? Yes. Okay, so we covered this.
I think there's just one like side thing that's like coming up. It's like mommy guilt. So basically, like for example, with my kids, let's say I finally got them, as I was feeding the baby on the couch, I said, come on, I'll read to you. So that was the time to do it. They can turn the pages over. So one book is a small book. Then, okay, they wanted another one. Yes, it was a small book. Then after that, it's like, how do you deal with one more, mommy guilt? Like always it's never enough, for your kids. Yes. Sometimes it can never be enough.
Yeah, that's exactly the question. The question is less how do you deal with the request for one more, but more how do you deal with your own guilt, right? Because the kid says one more and you say, sorry, I can't. If this was the end of the situation, that would have been good.
Sometimes you don't feel guilty. Right, because sometimes you don't feel guilty and you're strong about it and you say, sorry now, I've done this for you, now it's bedtime. Come on, let's go. But other times, you do feel like, it would be fun to do one more, and then you do one, and then you think that you've you feel like you kind of they don't understand that you've given more than you want to, and they should appreciate it. They don't understand anything about having appreciation. Yeah. When they're so small, they haven't developed that skill yet. So how does one deal with the mummy guilt when you do? You speaking to Noga?
I think you deal with it on two levels. Level number one is like the truck driver and like the anger. So anger is the context of being a mother, getting upset and discovering that I have a monster. I thought I was the calmest person in the world, but here there's a monster.
Yeah.
And guilt is part of what we experience, you know. There's a whole load of guilt in the back of our truck, and that's how it is. But again, the toolbox is also part of the context. So knowing how to deal with it is very, very recommended. So my favorite guilt buster is what I said before. What's the most important thing right now? So my kid asked me for another story. So I quickly go through this question. What's the most important thing right now? I might decide that the most important thing right now is to give him that extra. Why? Because I know what happened in the last 3 days. Maybe he didn't get a second of attention the last 3 days. Maybe he was sick. Maybe his siblings really disturbed him today. Maybe I just get this feeling that he needs mommy time. Maybe I can send him to someone else to read. Maybe I'll decide that he does need the story, but it doesn't have to be for me.
Yeah.
So, and maybe I'll say no. Now I'm working on bedtime, and if I screw this up, then for another 2 months I'll have to be working on bedtime, because he'll see that every time he says to me, just another one, I give in.
Yes.
So the question, what's the most important thing right now, will put me in the context of my own home, because for another mother the answer will be totally different. And for me, it might look from the outside like I'm giving in, but really I'm doing something that's the right thing to do right now in my situation with this unique child. So then there again, I would ask myself and let the answers come through and practice with it. Sometimes you'll ask, and then you'll realize that you took from all the answers that came in, you picked the wrong one. But fine, you have all the time in the world now to practice. They're still young, you know, and they're teenagers, and they come like this, and you have to give an answer, and that answer has a lot of implications. Then you'll be so trained that you'll really trust what comes up. You know, you'll really trust your answers.
Yes.
So the kids are giving us a lot of opportunities to test our intuition and our listening skills to the inner answers.
Okay.
Okay, we'll go for one last question.
Yes, which one are we going for? She's asking about twofold. How long after the baby is born can we begin toilet training? As in, what signs of readiness to take on a new adjustment should we be looking for? And 2, how do I deal with her fear of sitting on the toilet? Another thing we have been putting off is transitioning her to a big girl bed, which she has been showing less signs of readiness for anyway, but my husband is anxious to transfer her to one before the baby moves into her room in about 5 months' time. But I think this is not a good idea to base the transition on baby instead of our oldest, and she'll be adjusting to a new family dynamic for a while.
Okay, so this is a great question about adjustment and transitioning from babyhood to toddler years. You focused your question on the baby's side, or the toddler's side, how to transition the baby. But as you can see, you added your husband's opinion on the matter. My husband is anxious to transfer her to a bed. And I think a lot of the transition that happens from babyhood to toddlerhood is also our own transition. And I remember at the beginning I would read all these books like How to Expect When You're Expecting. That was actually not my book. My book was The Baby Book by Dr. Sears. But, you know, this style of books to get opinions, you know, and to understand how babies work and how this transition works. And I would also busy myself very much with the question when. But I want to change the focus. I want to focus on you, and I want to focus on your husband, since he has an opinion, which not every husband has an opinion on these matters, but he has. And so let's start from your husband. So he doesn't want to transfer her to another bed, and you're saying that anyhow it doesn't look like she's so ready. So don't transfer her. That's my tip here. Listen to your husband. If he's anxious, you'd rather have a husband that sleeps well at night and doesn't worry about the transitioned baby next door. You know, if she's in your bedroom, just leave her there, or wherever she is, just leave her there. Another thing is, think about yourself. If you transition a girl
probably for the first 3 months, you'll need to have them in your room either way.
or she'll wake up, or you'll need to, she's going to maybe fuss about it one way or another, waking up at night, calling you, whatever. So think about yourself. Do you want this transition right now? That's really the question. Is it so urgent? Is it the most important thing right now that this baby is transitioned? Or maybe the most important thing right now is to do what my husband wants to do. Maybe the most important thing right now is to have a good night's sleep and not to deal with transition issues. And you have to take into account that when you transition a child to a bigger bed, she wakes up at 6 a.m. and you can't keep her in bed. That's it. She can get up and she can go to the kitchen, and you have to get up and follow her around. And so take that into account if you are up to it and you think it's very important for her independence, or you like to see the steps of growth like happening in a certain order, and it's that important to you, then move her. But think about yourself. That's it's the same question really with sitting on the toilet, with being toilet trained. I understand that in the past babies were toilet trained much earlier because they had cloth diapers, so it was very uncomfortable for them. And again, mothers thinking about themselves and all the laundry was very uncomfortable for the mothers.
Yes.
So babies were trained much earlier. Today with the diapers, everyone is very comfortable. The baby is comfortable and the mother is comfortable. You sometimes, I saw the signs with my 7th son. I saw the signs very early on. He would all of a sudden stop everything he was doing and like open his legs and let everything come out and then continue playing. Or sometimes he would warn me that number 2 is coming up. So he was very well aware. That was like a year before I toilet trained him. In part because it wasn't convenient for me, in part because it was winter, in part because I knew that in the nursery where he was, in a little home group of kids, the teacher is going to do it, and when she starts there and I continue at home, it's going to be much easier. But I'll tell you what happened in the end was she did start. The other kids were doing just fine, and he didn't want. So finally, when he was 3 and 3 months old, that's when he was toilet trained. You're asking what to do with the fear of sitting on the toilet. So it's a fear that many kids have, especially for number 2.
Yes.
Be patient. Be patient. Take into account a lot of pooping on the floor and peeping in the air, and maybe some embarrassment when you're in public. I had that personally, but I just looked straight. What's the most important thing right now? To make this kid feel comfortable about himself and not to be embarrassed. It's less important what other people say and their opinions about when kids should be weaned. And the grandmother who comes and says, "What? He's still in a diaper?" If this is what you decide, then just go with it and accept your own decision. Okay, so we're back on the toilet seat. The best tip I got when my oldest daughter was doing this transition is that the first time you might have to force your kid down on the toilet seat and wait until he makes, because he needs to have this first time experience to see that it's not like giving birth. Maybe it feels like something is going to happen to him, but it's not that bad. And if you hold him down and he even cries, but finally something comes out and he realizes that's the whole story, I can do it again. So that's worked for me. I know that it works for others. I got this tip from a parenting teacher and I hope it works. And if there's a regression and you toilet train and then you realize that he's really not so ready or you're not so ready, go back to diapers. And when it's really important, like when he goes to a municipal kindergarten, it'll be so important. That'll be the most important thing, and it's just going to work. So we are going to end this session at this point, but make sure to download the PDF right next to this video. We're going to have the links to the books, not only to How to Talk So Kids Will Listen, but also to other related books. We're going to have extra resources that you can keep exploring if you're curious about the topics we talked about. And we're going to list there the top 10 takeaways from this conversation in a format that you can just hang it on your refrigerator and have it at a glance. Thank you for being with us. And have a great day.
Thank you.
Understanding what our own...
My children.
And I have to say your pink stands out less than my pink. 'Cause you're such a smiler. She's such a smiler.